Welcome to the Comedic Minds podcast. It is May 14th, 2024, and we're going to be going over race-based or lineage-based policies. Are they needed in America, right? Are they needed? Are they not needed? Well, before I begin, I want to give the first argument for not needing race-based policies. So what most people would say is that basically race-based policies that benefit the descendants of the slaves or African Americans, foundational Black Americans, ADOS, American descendants of slaves, ADOCs, right, American descendants of chattel slavery. These policies are racist against white people. These policies are racist against Indian people. These policies are racist against Chinese people. They're racist against other people who should be included, is what the argument might be, right? And so I guess that would be okay if there were, I could go with that premise if there weren't systemic disadvantages and disparities that have been created, that have manifested, and open wounds that have never been healed. Right. Shout out to the people. First of all, I want to give credit to the people that are making a difference in terms of healing those wounds. There was a wealthy gentleman who did do something for the Oklahoma Tulsa massacre, and lynchings. Right. Someone who actually made a difference in 2024 for the living descendants. So shout out to him. Right. But there's more that has to be done, to affect the 47 or so million of us that are still affected by these policies that have been instituted by people who are long gone, right? It's about making, again, where I'm coming from is making this country a powerhouse, okay? And that is to stop this disparity thing and to end it once and for all. Just be done with it so we can move forward and be stronger. So I'm going to be going over this article by the USA Today. 12 charts that show how racial disparities persist across wealth, health, education, and beyond. So when people talk about systemic racism, they mean systemic, impacting institutions, policies, and outcomes across all aspects of Black Americans' lives. And this is a 2020 article. And multiple authors contributed to this article. And you can verify this information or the data that I'm going to be going over. It's well known data, but I'm going to go over it another time for those who are having trouble with race-based policies or lineage-based policies that positively impact Black communities. Okay, so when I talk about disparities, that means a gap, right? Or being in despair due to these gaps, right, that exist. Benefit others, but do not benefit those who need the benefits the most. And the reason why these programs, before I get into it, the reason why these programs to me are essential is because there's so many times that in history, the Black Americans were denied specific comprehensive reparations plans that would help the freedmen manifest a better future, a more solid foundation. So the disparities start at birth, right? The very beginning of life. These disparities begin. Black women die 3 times more often when giving birth. There's one disparity. Black Americans are dying at a disproportionately higher rate from the global pandemic. A lot of Black Americans haven't recovered from the pandemic of the economic pandemic of '08, the Great Recession. Right? We're impacted more due to only having a very small portion of the wealth in America, despite giving America the greatest gift of a nation, right? it's reflected in overall longevity too. And see, this is why I'm concerned, because when nothing is being done, and I mean, we just recently had the anti-lynching bill that was passed, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill that was passed. However, a lot of people will argue, well, the person that was involved in that never was served justice, that was involved in that crime, right? So that, you know, it's not good, right? However, we have to keep in mind that change is upon us, right? Change is upon us. And the reason why I'm concerned about many of the things that I see today going on is, if nothing is being done to mitigate or change the dynamics in America, what's really being planned behind the scenes that we don't know about, right? The people not on the inside, right? What's really being said, what's really being planned, right? When none of these change, it's clear who needs the help, right? And I'm not just saying Black Americans, I'm talking about Americans in general too need help, right? But it's exacerbated by these disparities in the Black community. Black men and women live shorter lives. I talked about that JSTOR article that mentioned 1.6 million excess deaths in the Black community. Again, a lot of this stemming from heart disease. So literally our hearts are broken. Our hearts are in dis-ease. From classroom to the C-suite, in schools, Black students face disproportionately higher suspension rates. Black girls are received more severe penalties for the same behavior as their white peers, according to experts. So they are nearly 6 times more likely to get out of school suspension. And, these are things that, once you have a suspension on you or problems in school, it can really impact you. Now, I like to get into a little bit more detail of these situations, but we know for a fact that Black people are policed more than anybody else. Now, I can give you a personal experience myself, just doing my day-to-day thing. I notice the presence, right? And it's almost like always watching us, right? So, these things can create a level of anxiety, just a little. When you're headed to work and living your day-to-day life, not bothering anybody, and you're trying to be a law-abiding citizen and you're yelled at the top of your lungs, somebody's yelling at you at the top of your lungs, you're trying to head to work, they can impact you. So the percentage of high school students who graduate on time, Black is near the bottom at 79%, American Indian, Alaskan Native at the very bottom. Percentage of students who graduate from 4-year college programs, and of course we're near the bottom at 40%. And Asian Americans really high, 74%, 64%. White and Hispanic and Latino, 54%. Black unemployment rate amongst the highest. Now, some people are going to say, again, blame Black people for Black people's problems, right? But again, this is what we talk about, old wounds that haven't healed, right? A lot of youth are discouraged because a lot of people are discouraged from starting families, or, just by having a lack of wealth. Wealth affects every aspect of our lives, especially where you're born affects every aspect of your life. But these things have to be taken into consideration. So disparities continue in the workforce. Not only do Black people have higher unemployment rate, they're often left out of high-paying jobs. And this resonates strong. This resonates strong because, see, unless you literally have to uproot your entire life to get one of these high-paying jobs, right? And many times you get discouraged and you're like, look, I'm done playing the gymnastic game. I'm just going to take this little fast food job. and I'm just going to do this, right? Because it's like, it's so exhausting. You're already exhausted being a black person in America, but just imagine when this disparity has been created and this difficult situation has been created for you to have to overcome, right? Black unemployment rate amongst the highest. So May 20th, seasonally adjusted rate, black unemployment rate is at 16.8%. Hispanic is even higher. And in corporate America, many black people say they've endured racism in the workplace. So even if we do get one of these high-ranking jobs, many black people talk about, I believe it's 45%, 47%. Pew Research highlighted how many black Americans do not feel as if it's an equitable environment in which they are not, treated differently than anybody else. So they're dealing with workplace. People talk about microaggressions. I would say another thing is condescending energy, right? That from non-blacks, just the condescending, you're not doing good enough, the higher than expectations than everyone else. This type of energy can be very toxic. Now, black leaders, CEOs are among Fortune 500 companies, only make up a tiny fraction of the Fortune 500 companies. We have Roger Ferguson from TIAA, Jai Zitlin from Tapestry, Marvin Ellison from Lowe's, and Kenneth Frazier, right? So they have a plotted chart showing them. And you can watch this replay on YouTube. I'll be posting this video. But this also impacts income inequality between racial groups, which remains a significant problem, right? Black median household income trails other races, right? So we're last place there. Median household income, and of course the massive racial wealth gap. Black Americans are also less likely to own a home than other racial ethnic groups. Okay, Black American homeownership rates remain amongst the lowest. These are things that systematically impact these race-based policies that exist today. These things impact our lives as Black Americans, and so we should care if we really are an equitable country, right? Although more white Americans live in poverty by total numbers, 17 million versus 9 million Black people. In terms of percentages, Black Americans are almost twice as likely to live below the poverty line as white Americans. Okay, Black poverty rate more than double the white rate. Okay, that's the poverty rate. And we're the highest, 21.2%. That's very high. It may be higher than that now. I'm not sure. Criminal justice, Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by the police, and I believe 22% more likely to be pulled over, from what I've read. According to the study by the University of Michigan, Rutgers University, and Washington University, again, Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by the police, right? Now, bias also has been documented in plea bargains and sentencing. After decades of rising incarceration rates that followed the Get Tough on Crime mandates of the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s, the problem of mass incarceration is slowly declining, according to the Pew Research data. Inmates in federal and state prisons, 475,900 Black, white is at 436,500, and Hispanic is 336,500. Now, it's interesting that Black is at the top. And again, we're representing a small portion of the, population, so it's like, wow. So according to Pew Research, African Americans view political representation as a potential catalyst for increased racial equity or equality. However, voter suppression remains a critical issue, right? We have a small makeup of racial Black people in Congress, very small percentage of senators and representatives. Again, those political initiatives being very important for having a voice in Black America, right? And we know, and we go back to the historical context of the Tulsa they call it race riots, but it was actually a Black massacre and a where bombs were actually dropped. And so, this is, again, how much could Black America have added to the strength, the economic strength of America if that incident didn't happen, right? You think about those things. What could have it been if we'd have just done right by Black people instead of set the sabotage, right? That still goes on to some extent today, and with many of the hate crimes being directed towards Black people at this moment. So again, if these disparities and social disparities didn't exist, I would be okay if these programs were not disappearing or being under full threat at this moment, right? My assessment comes from a historical and modern day disparities that exist that Black people did not create. We did not manifest these disparities. So if you're going to say, well, we don't need anything that's racist against white people, we don't need anything that's racist against this race, we're going to push this race away or that race away. Okay, well, if we're going to replace it with a different program, we need an unbiased panel of different nationalities that make key decisions on a person's economic outcome. And if that's the case, we're going to lift people out of poverty no matter the race. That's cool. Again, with those programs, there can't be any bias. There has to be an economic upliftment of those demographics and making sure that there is no bias in who receives those benefits if we're going to actually care about all Americans. If you're going to say all Americans, or you're going to say all lives matter, okay, prove it. Because so far, we're not doing a good job. Now, it's improving in some cases, especially with the Black male incarceration rates. But it's interesting that there's statistics that show the female incarceration rate is increasing. So that's not good, right? So it's work that has to be done. We got a long way to go. And if we're going to create, less excess deaths, less inequities, you're talking about 1.6 million excess deaths. I mean, that's a staggering number, and there's a few people that highlighted, Professor Black Truth highlighted that. And so it's important that we analyze, what we all can do. I don't believe this issue is going to be a, one hero or thing or a central leader or anything. I just think it's something that, it needs to be addressed for the nation to move forward much stronger. And again, I'm for peace. I am not a violence advocate. I am not one that's jealous of other people, that wants other people's resources. I'm good. I work hard. I work very hard. And so I'm perfectly fine with, either way, whatever happens. But I know that systemically for future generations and systemically, we can make America equitable in the future and make and by empowering those who empowered America originally, and them able to build and create, I think we can make this place amazing if we choose to do so. And it has to start from the top to the bottom. But yes, the question again, are race-based or lineage-based policies needed? I believe they are, unless there's going to be a comprehensive addressment of these disparities and a fair shot for everyone that is truly fair. And whose definition of fair will that fairness be or occur with, right? Is if somebody has a heavy bias in one way, it may not be fair. This is what we want to avoid. This Kmtc Minds, thank you for checking out this podcast. I'm still working out my kinks, but have a great week ahead. Okay, so we're going to do this one more time. I've had trouble trying to get this space.